Welcome to the Athlete Insights Podcast, hosted by Yash Pad Day, a podcast focused on letting athletes tell their journeys in their sport. This podcast is presented by Boxed Water. Boxed water is better.
Welcome into another episode of the Athlete Insights Podcast. Today I've got my guest, Coach Jim McGuire. He's the head coach of Volunteer State Community College Baseball and their baseball team. So Coach McGuire, I know you guys just came from practice and you guys are in the midst of fall ball, but I appreciate you kind of taking the time and spending some time with me.
Well, it's a privilege on my end too. I appreciate you having me on, and
Yeah.
love to do things like this, and love to talk about baseball, but love to talk about Volunteer State and, well, really baseball in general. So this is a good opportunity for me too.
Yeah, no, and I love talking sports, love talking baseball, all kinds of different sports and variety of sports. So it's great having you and getting your perspective and getting your story as well. And so I want to kind of start off at the beginning, like I normally do with my guests, is when did you first start to play sport as a kid? What's your first memory with sport? Was baseball, and then kind of follow up on that, was baseball kind of your first love? Kind of, did you have other sports mingled in with that?
Yeah, it was definitely baseball at the start. I grew up right outside of St. Louis,
Mm,
on the Illinois side, though, Belleville, Illinois, and
sure.
so was going to St. Louis Cardinal baseball games from the time felt like I could walk, and
Yeah.
so fell in love with the game with my dad, and then my dad, he never really pushed me, but we were at the park a lot. I mean, I can remember that distinctly, being 5, 6 years old, and him having me out there by myself, and then allowing me to play. Back then you had to be 7 to be able to play in the league.
Mm,
But he got me in when I was 6, so I got to be in a year early.
yeah.
Actually, still have my uniform that I had from back then is in a shadow box at my house,
Gotcha.
which is a kind of a neat thing. But and it was always baseball growing up, and then as I got more into elementary school than the basketball started.
Yeah.
And so I was always a baseball, basketball guy all the way, through high school. But
Uh-huh.
um, baseball was always my love. And that's, I developed, I think, quicker that way too, just with the amount of time that I played and the effort that I put into it. And then got an opportunity to play in college. And then, through that process, then that's led me into the coaching side. But I
Mhm.
was one of those guys that bounced around to a few different schools. So uh,
Gotcha.
I know what the portal guys go through now a little bit. I went through that a long time ago, but
Yeah.
baseball has always been my first love. But I love basketball too. Still like basketball.
Gotcha.
Never played football. Got pushed to go in that direction, but never ended up going to that side.
Okay. And talking about kind of your love for baseball, what position, if I may ask, did you play as a youth in your youth career?
Yeah, all the way through, I kind of got lucky. I was one of those guys that got to play in the infield from the time I was, maybe not when I was 6. I think I got stuck in the outfield a little bit then.
Yeah.
No offense to the outfielders out there, but
Gotcha.
and then went into the infield, and then got to play, all the way through from, like I said, from elementary school, junior high, all the way through high school and college. I was always a shortstop, third baseman, a little bit at second base,
Yeah.
but always had the opportunity to stay in the infield, and that's always been my first love as far as who players that I work with.
Gotcha.
I'd rather work with infielders more than probably anybody.
Yeah. No, it's I when I played youth, I was normally center fielder, so I never got to go into the infield. Youth baseball into middle school baseball, never really got in the infield. So kind of jealous of the infielders in that
I understand
regard.
that.
Because they got to make all the plays and
Yeah, right. The balls, yeah, there's a lot more action in the infield.
yeah,
Everybody can
yeah.
go to sleep in the outfield. I
Oh
know.
yeah. No. And then is there a core memory? I know you talked a lot about you went to the park with your dad a lot. In your youth career, is there a core memory that stands out to you from your youth career before we kind of jump into high school?
Yeah, I mean, just the competition and playing, and it was all local base back then.
Yeah.
You weren't, now there's all the, travel organizations and stuff that are going on at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old already, where my distinct memories is going from, I was in a relatively small town where we played, and then
Mhm.
going from town to town and playing against players that would end up being later really close friends of mine that as and I guess that was the biggest thing for me was the relationships even at that young of an age.
Yeah.
Some of them I ended up playing in high school with, some
Uh-huh.
played against in high school, some went all the way through and played against them in college. So it was I think that experience more than anything, just playing in the community setting, it was awesome. I just thought there was 100 people in the stands, or may have been five, but it seemed like there was more than that.
Yeah.
And I just remember all those things very distinctly. And again, being with my dad, he
Yeah.
coached our team
Mhm.
as I grew up as well. So I think those connections, both the relationship with fellow players, but then with my dad as well, being one of the coaches.
No, it's great to kind of see. I know a lot of memories for people stem from family and spending time with family. So it's great to see that you got to not only enjoy the sport with your dad, but spend time with your dad and really build that relationship. Because I'm sure, as a coach, kind of the power of relationships and building those relationships up, especially, within family as well. So that's kind of great to see kind of how you were able to do that early on with your dad. So that relationship must have been great. So, but talking about your high school career, can you talk about briefly discuss your high school career a little bit? What's something you took away from high school, and kind of your biggest takeaway from there?
Well, when I was, I was again small community, small high school
Mhm.
in Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
Um, was very fortunate as a freshman to be able to play on the varsity team as a freshman,
Yeah.
and that was unheard of back then.
Gotcha.
But there's a lot of things that went with that. Some of the seniors weren't real happy that
Yeah.
that there was a freshman coming in
Yeah.
that they didn't know anything about. So that was something that always stuck with me. And then once I played and got going and kind of earned their respect, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Then
Mhm.
then I bonded with them and got an opportunity to play,
Yeah.
and then just started building it, as a freshman, and got an opportunity to be a 4-year, starter in high school, and put up all the numbers. And I was kind of the big fish in a little pond, I guess
Yeah.
is the way everybody calls it.
Uh-huh.
And kind of got an awakening when I went to college. But
Exactly.
but all through high school, I'm going back to the relationship side. My high school coach, uh,
Uh-huh.
Gary Hearn, he just very instrumental in everything that I did. I never really had because again, I mentioned my dad was basically my coach growing up.
Yeah.
And then when Coach Hearn took over and he stepped out on a limb to stick a freshman on the varsity team and play him every day and
Yeah.
play shortstop,
Yeah.
um, he said a lot. And then, the relationship I developed with him and his family. And I think going way back, my college coach is the biggest reason I went into coaching. But,
Yeah.
but as I look back on it now, as I'm older, I think
Mhm.
that relationship with my high school coach really kind of started everything, because I never thought I was a business major in college.
Oh.
Had no thought of trying to coach or anything like that. My dad
Yeah.
never really pushed me that way, or my family.
Yeah.
But as I go back to it, that's one of the things. We won some championships
Yeah.
two different times in high school. Never made it to the state tournament, but
Gotcha.
got to play a lot of great people. Played at Busch Stadium in St. Louis and got to do great things like that. But
Yeah.
again, I'm going back to relationship with my coach. I think was the biggest thing I took away from it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And I asked the athletes I interview this too is I know you talked about your unique college experience, getting awakening when you got to college, being the big fish in the little pond. What's the biggest difference that you noticed in the college game when you were going to college, versus when you were in high school? What's kind of the key difference there?
It was a drastic change for me. I mean, I went to, again, small town, Freeburg, Illinois, high school is
Yeah.
where I went, but I
Mhm.
went to Illinois State. So I went to a Division I school,
Yeah.
in high school, and there was only just a handful of, student athletes that had ever gotten that opportunity from my high school to play Division I. And I thought I was going to walk in and, step in right away like I did when I was in high school as a freshman. And,
Yeah.
and, once I walked on campus and got there and saw, what the talent level looked like, everybody was good. The
Yeah.
work ethic was unbelievable. I'd never really worked that hard at the game. I'll be honest with it now that, I just always played and I got those opportunities and to see how these guys worked. And I mean, I was kind of, my head was spinning, right away. And I was like, boy, do I really belong here or not?
Mhm. Yeah.
And even back then it was just kind of, starting where a lot of baseball players would be in the weight room. And that,
Yeah.
that was so foreign to me that I had no idea because we just didn't do that.
Yeah.
Um, and the amount of work they put in there and the extra work on the field and
Mhm.
I learned a lot. I mean, I really did. But it spooked me a little bit and I didn't get to play much as a freshman.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was to the point that, the end of my freshman year, I'm like, I'm probably better off going to junior college and playing,
Gotcha.
because I really didn't. I didn't really feel like, at
Mhm.
that point, looking back on it now, I should have stayed. I should
Yeah.
have stayed and just fought through it, and I think I would have been fine.
Yeah.
But I didn't. At the end, it got to the point that I was like, I'm going to go to junior college and play and then
Mhm.
try to be able to go from there. And that's what I did. And it was a good experience for me. And then later transferred after
Mhm.
that as well.
Yeah.
But it was just unreal to me about what it really looked like when you got on the inside of it and how tough, the coaches were. There was
Mhm.
nobody was coddling anybody or patting you on the back. I mean, it was motivation and pushing you and you better
Mhm.
be ready to go or you're going to get run over. And I
Yeah.
guess I'm not saying I got run over, but I got kind of pushed to the side, I think, a little bit because I wasn't really prepared for it.
Yeah. And it is a stark change for a lot of people, like going to college and even for myself, going to college was completely different. Obviously, academics are different, athletics is different. But you talked about, your college coach had a big influence on you, and had a big impact on your career. Can you talk about that relationship a little bit more?
Yeah,
And impact?
no, I'd love to. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. So after I went to Illinois State, I went to Ren Lake Junior College in Southern Illinois as
Hmm.
well. It's where I later coached there. That
Yep.
was my first coaching jobs. But then I transferred to Cumberland University in Lebanon, Tennessee,
Yep.
and that's my connection to Tennessee and how I've been here so long. But Woody Hunt, who was my coach there, he coached in back then there was short season professional baseball, so he would coach in the Pirates organization and then he would
Oh,
coach at
wow.
Cumberland.
Yeah.
So he would be on kind of both sides, both on the pro side and the college side. And
Yeah.
Cumberland was a small school, still is. It's bigger now, but similar
Yeah.
to Midway, I'm assuming. But
Mhm.
NAIA and he just had such an impact on me with everything that I did and how he handled players and
Mhm.
I could step away from it a little bit and see how not only how he influenced me but how he influenced all the other guys on the team and
Mhm.
good players or guys that were maybe not quite as talented
Yeah.
um, and he just, as a matter of fact, it's ironic because I talked to him today. He's retired and he was just kind of calling and checking on me today, just kind of
Yeah.
see what was going on. And we've had that relationship since I graduated in 1985, and he helped me get to Middle Tennessee State University as an assistant, and then I later became the head coach there. So he was kind of the foundation of everything that I
Mhm.
was doing, and he was the first one. I worked a couple camps with him while
Yep.
I was in school, and after my junior year, he said, "Have you really thought about coaching?" And I said, "No, coach, not really." And he said, "I think you'd be good at it, and here's why, and here's your attributes." And
Yeah.
so then that summer, I went back home and coached a 15U team, and that
Oh,
was the first time I coached, and I've been coaching ever since.
wow.
After that, but.
Yeah.
Um, he was one of those people that, and I mean, he still is that way. He just makes you feel like you're the most special guy in the room. I could be in a room with 100 other alumni,
Yeah.
um, and he would still make me feel that way, even when I left. Like he should, like yeah, I think I'm probably his favorite guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he just had that. He's got that impact,
Or,
and he could do
yeah.
that. And he's a Hall of Fame coach, and
Yeah.
he's a lifelong friend to me now too.
For sure, for sure. And you mentioned your transition into your coaching career, and how you had multiple stops, and now you're at Volunteer State community college. Can you talk about your coaching career, what you've learned along the way, some lessons that you've learned, and what Volunteer State and what the state of Tennessee means to you in your coaching career?
Yeah, the state of Tennessee has been tremendous to me. This is my 30th year in the state of Tennessee,
Yeah,
in the state system. So 26 of those years were at Middle Tennessee State,
got you.
longtime assistant coach, and then the head coach there, and then out of college coaching for a couple of years. So the reason Volunteer State right now is so special to me
Hmm.
is I was separated for the game for about 2 years.
Got you.
It doesn't embarrass me to tell the story. It doesn't. I mean, 26 years at one place, Division One, awesome, awesome. Love the place. It was a great opportunity.
Yeah.
But in the modern era, I went from being Conference USA Coach of the Year in 2015, and in 2018 we were 27 and 27, and my
Yeah.
AD contract was up, and
Yeah.
and I lost my job. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
difficult situation,
Wow.
for sure. But then transitioned into this after a couple of years of being out and working with travel organizations and
Yeah.
helping kids in college and doing all that before I got here. And then when this opportunity came, I jumped at it, and it kind of rejuvenated me, I guess, a little
Yeah.
bit, and put me
Yeah.
into a little bit different mindset. I mean, I love the Division One level. That's where everybody wants to be, but we all know how chaotic that is now,
Yeah.
and how tough it is with the
Yeah.
portal and NLI money and everything that's going on. But I love my opportunity here, and back working with players, and
Yeah.
and and I've always told her I've been open and honest all the time. The reason, and some people said why after all those years, because I had coached 6 years at Red Lake Junior College before I
Wow.
went to MTSU as
Gotcha.
well. So after all those years, you're out. Why do you jump back in,
Yeah.
especially going from being a Division One head coach to being a
So,
junior college head coach?
yeah.
And I just tell everybody it's for one reason. It's the relationship with the player. It
Yeah.
really is. It's watching the development, being a part of that, watching
Hmm.
them grow, helping them
Yeah.
field, off the field, in the classroom, and
Yeah.
and just being a part of their life. And I love still teaching the game and doing all those aspects of it. But the opportunity that's been afforded to me at Volunteer State, this is finishing my fourth year now,
Yeah.
is or in the middle of my fourth year, I guess. It's just been great, and the state of Tennessee has been good to me,
Hmm.
all the way through lifelong friendships and relationships, not just from former players, but coaches and everybody around the whole state, from Bristol to Memphis. It's been a great opportunity for me, for sure.
Yeah, no, Tennessee. I mean, I know we're both probably biased, but a great state.
Great
Can be.
state. I tell
Uh,
everybody, no offense to my friends and my family in Illinois or in St.
yeah,
Louis, but I was never going back.
yeah. No, Tennessee is
Never
great.
going to do it.
No, and you mentioned there NIL and the chaotic nature of Division One baseball. Can you talk about the impact that NIL, transfer portal, that stuff has had since you've been the head coach at Volunteer State? Kind of how it's impacted the JUCO level from your perspective.
Yeah, I think it's going to affect it even more here coming up with the new limitations and roster limitations at the Division One level, and the amount of players that are in the portal and everything that's
Yeah,
going on. It's a trickle down effect for sure.
yeah,
And I mean, the obvious is we don't have NIL money where we can go out and pay players or be able to give them that type of financial, backing.
yeah,
But it has definitely been a trickle down. It's not like we've gotten a ton of Division One transfers, but
yeah.
we've gotten a lot of players that would have ended up somewhere else or at
Hmm.
a different level, and then ended up coming to us to get that opportunity to play for a
Gotcha.
year or two and then be able to transfer back out.
Yeah,
Um, we've just. I'm not saying we're loaded with transfers, but we have quite a few. But again, my whole point is it's not always about us getting transfers. It's
yeah.
about us now getting players that maybe normally would have went Division One or that I would have recruited at MTSU,
Hmm.
maybe as a roster spot guy or a low money guy.
Yeah,
Now they're not getting that opportunity, so now they're going to junior college instead.
yeah,
And especially in this period right now in the fall.
Yeah.
we've gotten some commitments from some players that, 5, 6 years ago, they would not have been going to junior college. They
Yeah.
wouldn't have.
And
So it's been a big effect for us.
yeah, and it's crazy, just to see the transfer portal, how many kids are in there and kind of how it all transpires. Because I always tell kids like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I graduated college undergrad, it wasn't really that big a thing. NIL wasn't even really around, and now NIL transfer portal has just exploded with kids and the impact that it's had. So it's been kind of great to see that as well, and kind of see how that has shaped different. And you talked about transfers coming in, roster caps and stuff like that, roster spots and stuff like that, how those switch around with all that said. And so before we kind of wrap up the podcast here, Coach, always ask my guests is what's the best piece of you had an illustrious high school career. You, like you mentioned, you started off at Illinois State, then went to JUCO, had a unique college route. You've had a successful coaching career, if I may, from MTSU to now at Volunteer State. And so, what's the biggest piece of advice over those years, the ever amount of years that you've been within the sport of baseball that you've received?
Well, I think that I still believe in the biggest thing is there's a lot of people out there now, especially baseball players, that are really discouraged about the way things are going and what this platform looks like,
Yeah.
and how in the world are they ever going to get here or there, or even find a place to play. But
Mhm.
one, never get discouraged over what any of this looks like,
Yeah.
because there's great opportunities out there at all different levels. It may not be at Tennessee or MTSU or a Division I school, but
Yeah.
there's great college experiences out there that you can be a baseball player,
Yeah.
get everything you want academically, and be able to take that with you with the rest of your life. I mean, and I
Yeah.
think that's where everybody kind of gets shadowed with the way things are now. And I have players the same way that'll finish their career here because they can't go to the highest level where they're missing out. I think they get discouraged,
Mhm.
and it's just hard to keep them on that path and thought process of that, hey, if you work hard, you do
Yeah.
everything you can, develop,
Yeah.
you can have a great college experience. And there's nothing better than going through college as a student athlete. I mean that I've seen it
Uh-huh.
my basically more than half of my life, both for myself and all the players that I've coached over the years
Yeah.
of just what that looks like, and then coming back seeing them later.
Yeah.
It's just a tremendous opportunity to. So I guess number one, don't get discouraged by the way all this looks, and just keep working and doing everything you can to try to achieve your goals and get to the highest level that you can get.
Yeah, and that's such a good message for not just the current college athletes, but for young baseball players, youth baseball players coming up, like you said too, is from the youth to the high school players. Because I think a lot of times we want that, at least the generation I'm in, and I'll speak for mine too, is that instant gratification of being
Right.
at the top, being at the top, and if you're not there, then you're viewed as a failure. When in reality, that is far from the truth, and that's you can, like you said, have a great experience and have a great process. And I've always been one believe that, just because somebody goes to a bigger school doesn't make them a better player, person, whatever you want to call it. And so that's great to kind of see that advice transpire from you as well. And so, but that's all the time we have for this episode of the Athlete Insights podcast. Again, Coach McGuire, I want to thank you for coming on. I'll have your social media handles and everything tagged in the video. So you guys can follow Coach McGuire and his journey at Volunteer State this season, this rest of this fall and into the spring. And you can follow my podcast on YouTube, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, basically everywhere you get a podcast, you can follow this one. And so I appreciate you taking the time. I know, like I said, you guys are busy with fall ball, but I appreciate you taking the time and spending the time with me. So
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for having me on.
thank you. And we'll see you next time.